Hello everyone, Cardo Gaming returns for another game review marathon. The last one we covered was the entire Jak and Daxter series, containing 3 main titles and 3 spin-off games, all which were revisited and reviewed for 2020. Sticking to some form of familiarity, our next marathon we will be covering will be the Ratchet and Clank series. Well, kinda. Just the original 3 Ratchet and Clank titles. I was going to stretch it to all of the games that followed directly on and were set around the same time zones. This would have included the original trilogy, Size Matters, Secret Agent Clank, and then ending with Deadlocked. And I know that the future trilogy are in the same time zone, but I like to think of those as their own little package. The only reason I won't be covering those and all of the other Ratchet and Clank games after 3 is that I know I'll get too worn out. I adore the Ratchet and Clank series, yes, but more the original trilogy. I like how Ratchet played and felt to control. It was effortless. I like the simplicity of the trilogy. It just gets too heavy after that for me. I have played all of the games highlighted in green, but never made it to the end of the crack in time. That is why it's highlighted orange. I honestly just wasn't having much fun running around as Ratchet or Clank solo without their counterpart. It didn't feel to me like a Ratchet and Clank game. It's okay if the whole getting Clank back was shorter, but it's pretty much ended after you get him back. I had previously attempted to go through all of the games, but as I said in a previous video, not only did it drain me, the videos themselves I wasn't proud of. They felt cheap and rushed, and not enough care went into them. I was reviewing the first game with the mindset of, this is a really cool feature, but I don't like it because 2 and 3 improved it, making it handle better. And that just wasn't the right mindset. But fear not, there's not going to be any of that in this video. I went into this game as if it was the only one, reviewing it for what it is as a solo package. And that's what I should have done before. So without further ado, let's begin this 3 video marathon with the first Ratchet and Clank game. I'm Cardo Gaming, and it is time to review Ratchet and Clank.
Look, plumber's crack.
What did you just say?
I said, look, the plumber's back.
All right, wise guy. It's attack! Geronimo!
I'll just quickly disclose we are going to be playing the game and the other 2 on the PlayStation 3 using the 2012 HD collection, so I can't really get into the overall graphics. Anyway, let's begin this Cardo review as we normally do by briefly looking over the story. And yes, I promise it's going to be a brief one. A robot cloning machine goes faulty and throws out a little tiny robot who Ratchet will then later nickname Clank. Clank then escapes after watching an infobot, but it's not long until he's then shot down, falling to the planet Valdin, which is where Ratchet happens to be. He decides to go and check out the wreckage when he finds Clank. After Clank then introduces himself to Ratchet and shows him the infobot, which introduces us the players to Chairman Drek. Chairman Drek tells us that his planet has become overrun by pollution and toxic waste. And because it's now no longer inhabitable, he's come up with a plan to take pieces of other planets to collide them all into one big planet, which will then be his. What he fails to mention is he's going to be destroying the planets in order to use the pieces of them, and he polluted the planet to begin with, all for money. Clank instantly wants to find Captain Quark, who he thinks can stop Drek, while Ratchet is very reluctant to help, instead just wishing Clank good luck. After Clank agrees to fix Ratchet's ship if he helps him find Quark, the 2 agree and their adventure begins. That's basically the brief version of the story. There's a fair amount of twists, shocks and laughs along the way, so believe me, I really haven't covered it all, but if you've played it, then you'll know what I mean. And if you haven't, I really suggest you do. It's a fantastic story filled with lots of emotions. Like, honestly, they handle these characters so well. They feel like real people because, of course, they don't always agree with each other's actions, and the only reason Ratchet agreed to help in the first place was for his own selfish need of wanting his ship to fly. He planned on getting Clank to Quark and then leaving. I don't know what more to say without getting into the huge spoilers. Well, I say spoilers, the game's almost 2 decades old, but I don't want to go too heavy into the story, as the chances are if you're watching this 18 years after the release, you already know the story pretty well by now, and if you don't, you ain't gonna want it spoiled any more than I already have done, so I'm doing everybody a favour here. So let's talk about the gameplay now. You control as Ratchet and sometimes Clank, but we'll get back to him later. Ratchet controls perfectly as he platforms around open planets, and not too far into the game, Clank gets an upgrade that makes Ratchet even better.
Am I cool now?
Yeah, you the man, Clank.
You're welcome.
He can now glide with Clank and perform a forward thrust move that allows him to move around faster and glide over tight gaps. Ratchet has a wrench to begin with, but is able to buy more weapons from the Gadgetron vendor. There's such a wide range of weapons to use, things such as blasters, flamethrowers, bomb gloves, and many more. They can all be purchased for using bolts that Ratchet collects on his adventure. They can be collected by breaking the boxes, the environment, and most enemies. It gives a lot of replayability factor to go back through the planets that you've already been on before to collect more bolts as you save for new weapons and gadgets. Each weapon feels great to use, and most of them all have their own unique use that helps make them all feel unique rather than all being the same. Whether that be from different animations to stronger damage or some being used just to distract, they all have their own advantage, so it helps to get all of the weapons.
I'm a pretty good shot.
You get a couple more upgrades for Clank along the adventure that change Clank for the better, not only making him look cooler, but providing a nice speed boost for the thrust gliding. The other upgrades for Clank is a water one that's not really used much as you get it quite late into the game, but it can be used on the older levels that include water, but again, there isn't that many. This pack allows Ratchet to boost himself when underwater to travel at 3 times his normal swimming speed, and also to repel against fast oncoming tides. As I already mentioned, all of the Ratchet's weapons feel great to use, but it's not just the weapons he gets, he also manages to get his hands on plenty of gadgets along his adventure. Some of these gadgets are really cool and add a fun gameplay feature, like the slingshot. Some are, some are okay, and then others are just goddamn painfully bad. Like this, it's used for locked doors that just didn't need to be locked. You have to match the lights up to make them all green, and then some of them are really easy, but the most of them are so stupidly impossible, you can be at them for ages, slowly losing more and more of the will. Among those gadgets, you can also find ones that can be equipped onto Ratchet. Most of these are mandatory to progress the game, such as the grav boots that cling you onto the metal surfaces. Regardless of gravity, you will not be affected. There's also grind boots for grind railing and an O2 mask to give Ratchet oxygen. However, the ones that aren't mandatory are normally found when taking a side path in the planet. And sometimes find the items just lying around, but other times you'll run into an NPC who will charge you for it. These items are just overall improvements for Ratchet, like a bolt grabber and a map-o-matic. They're alright, I suppose.
Yeah, not bad.
Speaking of the NPCs, there's so many of them, and they're brilliant. They add character to the world and gets the player to see all sorts of different life forms, but almost every one of them will charge you for whatever it is that they have to offer. It's not a bad thing, it's an ongoing gag, and it doesn't ever get old. The planets themselves are beautiful and very well crafted. There's a whole bunch of variety, from icy planets to dark misty ones to a completely polluted one. Plenty to experience here, my favourite one being this beautiful holiday resort, with my most hated one being this planet. And why is that, you ask? Because the second time you come here, you have to blend in as a goddamn robot, while every corner you turn, there's another one ready to catch you out for being an imposter. The checkpoints are non-existent, and I always have, and always will, hate this planet. The only good thing about this planet was, it introduced Giant Clank. The perfect segue. It's time to talk about Giant Clank. On this disgusting planet, a scientist shows off a creation he had been working on and asks Clank if he'd like to give it a try to help him take out all of the... I forgot what they were called.
Huge, heavily armed mechs.
So that's where those mechs came from.
Clank then agrees, and this is when we are given Giant Clank. Really small detail, I really like how Ratchet's now hanging onto Clank's back, as the roles have now been reversed. But yes, Giant Clank's fun to use, it's pretty epic stomping around as a giant robot, and when you look at Clank, it really isn't something you'd have expected to be doing at a first glance. Giant Clank gets a pass from me. It's a really fun and nice addition that doesn't get completely overused, and the same can be said about normal Clank actually. You play him a couple of times, the first one being shorter than the latter, but the latter one is really frustrating. I just don't like it too much. Clank moves very slow, and having to command these little robots gets quite boring and tedious. Giant Clank is a pass. Normal Clank is a big thumbs down, unfortunately. And thumbs in the middle now, as I began liking it and then ended hating it, and that is the hoverboarding. The first hoverboarding is fine, and I actually enjoyed that one, but the second one is horrific. Don't talk to me about that second one. You also control a ship twice, but it's over before you know it. I wouldn't say I loved it, but I wouldn't say it was terrible. Now, this game wouldn't truly be this game without the immaculate soundtrack that it has. I don't even know how to describe it other than perfect. It's so quirky and upbeat, with each planet having its own tune to it. The music's been blessing the background of this video, and it really helps to feed the immersion of these planets, bring them some more life. Not that they aren't already full of it anyway. Honestly, the music's an easy 10 out of 10. But there's one more thing to talk about before I do give this game a rating, and that is the replayability factor. When you finish the game, you have the choice to go back before you beat the boss, or play the whole game again in adventure mode. But being able to keep your current weapons and bolts, the difference is, in this mode you can swap in gold bolts to trade for golden versions of weapons. I didn't mention it before, but you can find gold bolts scattered around the planets, and throughout the whole game, you're left thinking, what are these even for? Well, when you play it again, you'll get to find out. I absolutely love the golden weapons. Now, not only does it change the colour of the weapon, it also adds an upgrade to it. For example, on the screen you're seeing right now the flamethrower getting upgraded. That changes the fire that the flamethrower emits to an acid version. And I believe that is about everything that I have in my notes, well, other than the difficulty, so I guess I'll quickly talk about that. There is no excuse for the sudden spike in difficulty. It can be very frustrating, and with very little health, it only gets worse. Especially on the last level. That thing is a nightmare. You can buy some more health later into the game, but it's very late in when you get access to this, and it only adds one extra hit per time, and it goes up price each time. Kind of a shame really, but we managed to get the game done with only one health upgrade. And that's it for Ratchet and Clank. I think it was a really fun adventure that was very optimistic, and they really went full out of the park here. The game is actually probably, in my memory here, I mean I haven't played them again, but we're about to, I'd say it's longer than, or just about the same length as 2 and 3 combined. It's quite a long game. It is really fun. The music's great. The levels are beautiful. The only negatives are the weapons are a little bit simplistic, but that's to be expected. I mean, for the time that it came out, they were really good. The difficulty spikes are horrendous, and I was left thinking it was dragging a little bit too long. So I'm going to have to give Ratchet & Clank an 8 out of 10. That has been it for the video, everybody. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to drop a like if you did enjoy. Subscribe for more, as we will be reviewing Ratchet & Clank 2 and then Ratchet & Clank 3. Thank you for watching, and goodbye for now.